So, before we begin, I always make it a habit to where if someone points out a mistake I made in the comments, I address it, because I'm a firm believer of communication. My bad about Alolan Persian's typing. That's a whoops. However, it does not change my ranking of it. And I don't know why I said Moltres had base 100 of anything. When I read that comment and looked back, I facepalmed and laughed it off before thanking my editor for showing me the correct stat spread. Although, yeah, when the script for the regional variants video was written, Sneasler wasn't banned, so that was a punch to the gut that I just had to take. I also forgot about Hisui Navalug, which honestly I just gotta own up to. I blotched it from my memory banks, but assume it's lurking in horrendous. However, I think these all pale in comparison to me saying no one uses Alcremie. Yeah, I'll get a personal apology on that one, and I will never slander your fairy again. With that out of the way, we're going to be ranking the fire starters from weakest to strongest, and determining where it was Game Freak did well when designing the Pokemon, and what it is they did poorly, while also considering what generation they were made in, and what buffs they got over time, since design philosophy has changed over the years. I'll be talking about exclusive Z-moves, G-Max forms, and Megas because they're all specific to that Pokemon. But since Terra can be used on every Pokemon, I won't be bringing it up unless it's super important. And with that, Miss Magius Hardcore Randomizer Nuzlocke, link in the description below, we can get started with our unfortunate weakest Pokemon. Now, why the heck is good old Emboar on here? Surely Typhlosion or Delphox must be weaker, right? And I mean, I want to believe that, but the facts don't lie. Emboar's weakness and what holds it back is that it has the famous Rampardo syndrome. It has the big attack stat, solid coverage, and the power to hit like a truck against an isekai protagonist in the first episode of the series. But that, sadly, is all it has going for it, which would be more than enough if it had speed. Emboar's issue is that its bulk is minimal outside of its big HP stat, which is only good for keeping it alive after it throws a reckless Flare Blitz, Wild Charge, or Head Smash at you. However, its speed means that before it ever gets off such a good move, it's already taking more than half of its HP. What about a Scarf set? Yeah, that would be cool, but it still would be out here getting outsped by stuff like Noivern, Swellow, Talonflame, and Electrode, who would all threaten to revenge kill it. Not to mention, you'd be locked into a move, which means the moment the move is scouted, that's it. They're sending in something that can eat the hit and force out Emboar, and this is assuming it's Jolly, of course. And going Jolly Scarf to be fast means that you lose out on crucial attack and crucial damage. And using Flame Charge means you lose a slot for coverage, and you have to position the Emboar perfectly to try to wall break. And that requires too many things going right. Feels bad, man. I go back and forth on whether or not Typhlosion is better than base form Charizard, or base form Charizard is better than Typhlosion, because they're both literally the same stat-wise, and sometimes I gotta ask myself if Sun Boosted Eruption or Solar Power Weather Ball is the better Sun Cleaner. I just kind of shift back and forth depending on what level of nostalgia I want to experience. Now, arguably, Typhlosion is better because less weak to rocks, and if you manage to switch in on a predicted Will-O-Wisp while also in the sun, its firepower hits a bit harder. So there is a definitive answer if you want it. Until you realize Charizard can ignore sticky webs, spikes, and toxic spikes, and then the debate restarts. It's still sadly a victim of the big power creep, not having the stats that the later fire starters would have, nor was it given that super cool Mega that two of the other guys got. And sadly, unless it's Hisuian form, it doesn't get Calm Mind. This is pretty tragic, honestly. So Delphox is a bit of a massive leap in quality in the power department. It's got actual special attack, speed, and special defense to work with, and access to stuff like Calm Mind and Nasty Plot, which it can actually make really good use of. And in terms of coverage, this wizard has plenty of spells in the toolkit to handle whatever threat necessary. Fire Blast is a necessity in my opinion. As any D&D player who has ran Warlock has said, if you can cast, use the blast, and I'll be living by that. But then stuff like Psyshock, Grass Knot, Dazzling Gleam, and Shadow Ball can all be interchanged depending on what your Delphox needs and what threat it's tasked with handling. And at low HP, instead of running the incredibly gimmicky Magician, you can just let Blaze do all the work and nuke whatever stands in your way to Kingdom Come. If I ever need a DPS mage in my party, I know who I am consulting first, which is Miss Magius, and this is where I insert my plug. But after that, it's Delphox. You'd think I'd rate Hisui and Typhlosion higher, but the competition here is fierce. Don't get me wrong, I love this mon, and I love its sun-boosted eruptions coming off of a 119 special attack. But it's got some weaknesses that the other fire starters don't that holds it back to an extreme. Due to it being slower than its regular form, it's very reliant on Choice Scarf to get the jump on its competition, which doesn't even always work, because Booster Energy can boost the speed of those gosh darn Paradox Pokemon. While being a rapid spin blocker is nice for it, it in return suffers from being incredibly weak to the move Knockoff more so than usual, because even if it doesn't KO your Ghost Weasel, it will remove the scarf that it latches onto for dear life. However, it makes up for these with its excellent power, its immunities to normal and fighting, its ability to scout items sometimes, like the 1% chance of the time when Frisk comes in handy, and the Ghost Stab in tandem with its powerful Eruption make it one hell of a Pokemon. But due to its many weaknesses, you kind of use Hisui and Typhlosion if you really like the Pokemon. While being the best starter to use in your Sinnoh run, it sits as the gatekeeper to the top 5 in terms of where it stands as a starter. It's got good attack, special attack, and speed for its time. The issue with Infernape nowadays is that base 104s and a base 108 doesn't cut it the way it used to. Sure, this array of stats gives it the ability to be an excellent Swiss Army knife in terms of mixed attacks, and then access to Slack Off, Knock Off, and Stealth Rock also give it some utility in tandem with the incredibly obnoxious Will-O-Wisp. But the issue remains that its power level isn't what you want for a mixed attacker because of how much better everything got. I am glad it is doing well enough to stay in Gen 9 UU where its stats are good. But in OU, it doesn't hit fast enough like a different fighting type like Iron Valiant. Like Iron Valiant, it's incredibly frail, and unlike Iron Valiant, it doesn't outspeed meta staples like Ogerpon, Walking Wake, Alolan Ninetales, and Iron Moth to name a few. It truly is hard being a Gen 4 Pokemon in a Gen 9 world. This will probably be the only segment where Terra comes up, because this is the only Pokemon on the list that uses Terra as well as it does. Being able to Terra Water or Fairy in order to have an actually good defensive typing, all while in tandem with stuff like Will-O-Wisp and Slack Off, and then Unaware as an ability to stop physical setup sweepers from powering through you, is a blessing that allows it to be good in most places it goes. Yeah, while it is a UU Pokemon nowadays, it's a UU Pokemon that is seen a lot in Ubers where it bullies stuff like Extreme Killer Arceus, Zacian, and presumably Miraidon. It's an amazing physical wall, not just because it just sits there. No. It sits there and threatens Torch Song and Hex on your statused Pokemon at every interval. So it has to be dealt with quickly, or else it becomes a massive problem. And with how defensive it is, thanks to Terra, that's typically not easy to pull off. This singing crocodile is in the top 3 musical deadly lizards in fiction. Right up there with Lewis from Princess and the Frog and King Gator from All Dogs Go to Heaven. I was gonna say top 3 alligators, but Skeledirge is a crocodile, and not an alligator. From what the VGC players have told me, which practically gives away what this Pokemon is, the lasagna-loving cat, especially in formats where it gets paired with its loyal best buddy, Odie, has been one of the most meta-defining doubles Pokemon to ever live. Ever. Intimidate is the best ability in the format, and access to stuff like Fake Out and Parting Shot alongside Intimidate have gone on record to make Incineroar, who in singles doesn't amount to much, one of the most annoying, pain-in-the-ass bulky support Pokemon to get rid of. And thanks to its dark typing, it also blocks stuff from prankster Pokemon, which I'm pretty sure comes up in this format. Keep in mind, I am not a doubles player. I do hear though that it runs Flare Blitz as its third move for offense, and then its most used fourth move is apparently Throat Chop to stop other Incineroar from using their own Parting Shot because it's a sound-based move. Man, the fact that it's meta-defining enough to where its fourth move is just to beat itself really says something. What about Insinium Z? You did say you would talk about exclusive Z moves. And here's the time. You're right. The issue is, I don't think I've ever seen this Pokemon use Malicious Moonsault in a competitive match, so I can't give an opinion without looking like a dunderhead. So I won't. Comment section, I need you all to work together to formulate the opinion for me, but keep the discussion respectful. Oh god, Cinderace. Before I get in the singles, I did my research, I got into contact with my sources. I sat down the Gen 8 VGC players I'm familiar with, and I asked them if Gmax Cinderace was any good in doubles thanks to stuff like Libero and Gmax Fireball's incredibly hard-hitting nonsense and how it ignores abilities. However, I was told that it was not, because Colossal and Charizard were better Gmaxers, and Incineroar was better support. So, am I gonna talk about Gmax Cinderace in singles? No. It wasn't allowed in singles for long enough because the whole gimmick got banned. Although, even if it did, its placement would not change, I'd like to believe. Now, base Cinderace in singles? Man, the move Court Change is some of the best utility a player can have in singles. And then combining that with Willow, U-Turn, and just a Pyro Ball for damage is solid, even with no attack investment. In fact, this heavy-duty boot set is so good that people forget there are other sets it can run. The amount of times I thought, oh, this is support, only to get slapped in the face on the Switch by Choice Band Pyro Ball is more than zero, and it's good every time. It's got great speed, utility, and offenses. Plus Libero, having even further stab options, really makes it one of the best Pokemon to use in the singles format as a whole. I mean, what's there to say here? This Pokemon in terms of straight singles is like one of the best singles Pokemon to ever live, at least in terms of fire starters. Sure, Gens 4 and 8 were rough for it, and it's not in Gen 9 yet, where I believe it will be a meta staple with all my heart, but in Gen 3, even without Speed Boost, its presence as an anti-meta pick is insanely good if played right. The keyword is played right, because ADV Revival was not a good showing for it. And in Gens 5 through 7, Speed Boost made it so oppressive that even without a Mega, it was gonna be banned. And in Nat decks, where Blaziken is allowed, its Mega is still banned. Speed Boost, alongside its excellent attacking stats and good coverage move pool like Thunder Punch and Stone Edge, alongside setup options like Bulk Up and Swords Dance, have made it incredibly oppressive over the years. I think that it has the overall best singles record of any starter Pokemon, but sadly, due to the existence of doubles, it isn't number one. Because I am trying to be impartial overall with this list, and a certain Pokemon received a lot of handouts. Man, Charizard. Its VGC performances in Gen 8 with Gmax Wildfire and the amount of damage it could do, or the fact that Mega Charizard's X and Y were staples in Generation 6 and 7, with Charizard's double presence and its ability to be good in singles, while X was mainly singles and could threaten entire teams with instant death after Dragon Dance. It basically was given everything it needed throughout the generations, at least from 6 to 8, to be a genuinely good Pokemon, no matter what format you were playing in. Originally, it wasn't gonna be number one, but I was trying to justify it being anything less, and I couldn't in a way that sounded right. Charizard is the most accomplished overall, probably due to having more time to shine and a lot more bias from Game Freak. But the results do not lie. Charizard, for all of its numerous flaws, has just enough broken stuff to compensate for it in the formats where it was good. Sure, take those away, and base Charizard is low-tier garbage. We know that. But this video is about the starters with all their exclusive stuff. And this tournament-winning, meta-defining, format staple of Gen 6 through 8, with the power of its Game Freak-given stuff, is the best fire starter. Although, in singles, it is no Blaziken or Cinderace, and in doubles, it's no Incineroar. It's still a jack of all trades for its time, and I'm gonna respect that. Now, if you got an opinion on the best fire starter, let me know. And if you want, feel free to make your own list. Just, be nice about it. I know this is the fire starter video, but if I see a flame war in the comment section, I'm gonna be disappointed. In the meantime, I'm gonna go play a Pokemon game where I can pick Torchic as a starter, and then I'm gonna run through the game with my favorite chicken. Ciao!